Hi there, and welcome to part one in this four-part mini-series called Living by Design. And I call it a God thing because what I actually mean by living our life by design is when we live the life that God planned for us to live, the one that he speaks about in Jeremiah when he says he has a plan to prosper us, plans for a hope and a future. So, what does it mean to live this life by his design? Well, when we live by design, we know three things. We know who we are, which is pretty big. We know why we're here, which is also pretty big. And we have a God given plan to action it out. Now, I know that there's a lot already in the slide to take in, but stick with me because we're going to break this down over the mini series. When you live your life by design, you purposefully and intentionally choose to live the life that you have been uniquely created to live. Many of us have grown up, and we're well practiced in competing and comparing with other people. We strive to be like other people. We try and people please. And I believe that when we're doing all these things, it's quite unlikely that we're living the life that God created for us to live. You see, I believe that God has uniquely created you by exquisite design to fulfill a much needed purpose on this earth. And if I'm so busy trying to be you and not being me, it's quite possible that I'm not actually fulfilling the design that God intended for my life. The other thing I know is that you do have a specific dream, calling, and purpose woven into the fiber of your being. And again, so long as we're competing and comparing and trying to be like others, we don't pay attention to the dreams that are intentionally woven into the fiber of our being. And I know for me, this is one of the reasons for many years I lived a life, what I call a life by default. That's the alternative of living a life by design. And this life by default comes at a great cost. So, just in a brief nutshell, when I finished school, I had no idea what I wanted to do. But I was really well versed in this whole theme of competing, comparing, people pleasing. And so I decided to study medicine. And, the further I got into my studies, I think the more, if I was honest, I realized that I was living someone else's life. But I was so far into it and living up to the expectations of the world that I didn't know how to opt out. So I continued studying medicine and I didn't hate it, but I also didn't love it. There were elements where I felt like I was serving others. It was a vehicle that I could use to contribute to the world, which did fill me with a sense of significance, but it still didn't feel true to who I was. So after many years and practicing as a doctor for about 10 years, we immigrated to Australia, and in that process I needed to do a whole lot to convert my degree and to be able to continue practicing. And I saw this as an opportunity to no longer study medicine. And that's when I realized that I had absolutely no idea who I was. I had no idea why I was here. And obviously, then I had no plan to action anything out. And so my search started. And the more I searched, the more despondent and depressed I got because I just couldn't seem to work myself out. So eventually I went back and I thought the only thing to do is to start again and study medicine again. And so I sat part one of the AMC exam, all the while crying, feeling depressed. I just knew I didn't want to do this. And finally I got to the end of myself and realized that if I wanted to live happy and fulfilled, there definitely was another way. So then, over again a number of years of searching and trying out many different things, I was on the couch with a friend one day crying in despair, and she said to me, "Why don't you go and visit a life coach?" I had no idea what coaching was and what life coaches do. So I Googled coaching and I still wasn't convinced. It looked very sort of airy-fairy to me. But I trusted this friend, and so I went to go and see a life coach. And oh my goodness, I just discovered this whole world of limiting beliefs, of old wounds in my soul, and self-sabotage, and ways that I was just keeping myself small and confined. And I discovered all the reasons why I couldn't figure out what I wanted to do. And I just don't, with all my heart, my desire is for you to not be in that place where I was, this place of despair and helplessness and hopelessness. And so I'm really excited to share these steps with you in this course. So when we intentionally want to start living our life by design, it's important to go and look at the cost of living by default. When we have no clear sense of direction for ourselves, we tend to drift. We settle for mediocre. Because we don't know who we are, we don't know why we're here, we carve comfort zones for ourselves, and that's where we stay. We tend to stagnate. We play it safe and we stay small. We know our light is dim, and we know we're not shining brightly, but we just don't see how it's possible to turn up the dial and to shine brightly again. Because we're not sure what our dreams are, when we do start dreaming them, we believe that they're just a lie. We believe that they are just far-fetched dreams and that they're not possible. And so we set small goals. Maybe we timidly do start to step out, and sometimes it's scary, or actually it's always scary out there. We get bumped, we get knocked down, and so we decide it's not worth it. We decide it's not worth chasing the dream, and so we maybe turn to grab onto somebody else's lesser dream. We constantly seek assurance from others. We continue to compete and compare because that's what we know how to do. And yet deep inside we feel like a fake, and we feel like we're the victim of our circumstances. And so the cost to living this life by default is that we don't ever find true fulfillment. So the truth is, we all do need a dream. We all do have a unique purpose. So what is yours? And what are you doing to action it out? So this is what I'm going to share with you now in this 4-part series. I'm going to give you the blueprint strategy that God gave me for how to live the life that He designed you for. So the first step in this process is to become aware of our comfort zones. Let's imagine that you've been in this job for a couple of months or even a year or two, and this job doesn't really inspire you and excite you, but it's comfortable, it's secure, you know what's expected of you, you know that you can do the work, you know that everybody kind of likes you. And so even at the back of your mind, you know that there might be this niggling that there could be more out there. And if you're honest, you actually know that there is way more out there that you could be doing. But that just all feels too scary. So we stay where we are because it's comfortable. So becoming aware of your comfort zones is definitely an important step in figuring out whether you are actually living your life by design or by default. So I'd like to encourage you to take out your pen and paper now, because I'm going to give you a few questions to work through. So first of all, I'd like you to take a moment to write down all the things that you do regularly that you're comfortable doing. You know, things like what places are you comfortable to be in, who are you comfortable hanging out with. Think of all the general everyday kind of stuff that you do that fills the hour of your day. And just take a moment, pause here and just write down anything that comes to mind. Once you've done that, I want you to have a look at the things you've written down, and then to think about what all these things give you. How do they serve you on a day-to-day basis? And what real value do the things that you fill your day with bring to your day? And just, this is all an exercise in awareness, just becoming an aware. So there are no right or wrongs, write down whatever comes to mind. Step 2 can certainly be challenging. But it's an exercise in becoming aware of what your dreams, desires, and passions actually are. As I shared with you previously in my story, I was so used to competing and comparing and people pleasing that when my coach worked with me to sit down and to try and explore deep in my heart and explore the desires that were mine, that I had, it took a while. So don't be discouraged if you're sitting here thinking I have absolutely no clue, because when you start asking yourself these questions and searching within yourself for the answers, you will find them. So be patient, and please do yourself a favor and work through these next questions I'm going to share with you. Because it's as much as what you put in is going to be what you get out. So stop for a moment, again press pause, and think about all the big one-day purpose dreams that you have. Those dreams that you have where you go, oh, one day I'll do this, and maybe one day I'll do that, and maybe you've had the same dream for years. Now, if you're not sure and you just don't know, don't worry, there's no right or wrong here. And just dream like a child, free fall. Don't consider whether something is possible or probable or doable. Just dream and write down the first thing that comes to mind. Don't overthink it. Don't consider, the know-hows or finances, whether there's time or manpower. Just dream and then write down what comes to mind. And if you're struggling to think of anything, like for me, I really struggled with this. So ask God to reveal His dreams for you, because the scripture says that we have not because we ask not. So if you ask, expect that you will hear from Him. Pay attention to all the dreams or visions or wandering thoughts that you have or see, even if they feel or seem ridiculously far-fetched, and just write down anything and everything that comes to mind. The third of the awareness steps is this. It's to get a clear view of what it is that you really want. You see, we often go through life with, it's almost as though we're wearing a set of glasses, a set of lenses. And sometimes when we're so busy looking at what other people are doing and we're wearing the glasses of competing and comparing, we can't see at all our own dreams and desires. So it's almost like we have to remove some of those glasses and start clearly seeing and visualizing ourselves doing the things that we really desire and dream. And so I'm quite excited for you to do this next exercise because it's quite a lot of fun. So take a time, again, really go through these questions and enjoy what you're going to discover. So for this exercise, I'd like you to find a comfortable chair, sit back, close your eyes, and spend a moment visualizing yourself actually living out those big purpose dreams that you wrote down in the previous step. Can you clearly visualize yourself actually doing the things that you dream about? And look for as much detail as you can. As you're looking at yourself and watching yourself stepping into your dreams, what do you see? What do you hear? What do you feel? Where are you when you're walking out these dreams? And what are you specifically doing in order to action this out? Write down as much detail as you can, because we know that if you can see it, it's possible. If you can't see it, it's really difficult to make it a possibility. When you can see yourself actioning out the things you dream of, you're much more likely to step out and to realize these dreams. And then the last of the awareness steps is to actually do the exercise to work out the cost of staying in your comfort zone. It's very important to not skip this step, because if we don't realize that it's actually, that there is an actual cost of staying in our comfort zone, even though it is our comfort zone and that's where we'll feel comfortable, then it's not likely that we're going to move forward. So when we realize the cost and the pain of actually staying where we are, and we realize what we're missing out by moving forward, we're much more likely to take action. So take a moment. I know these questions are maybe not the most comfortable to go through, but do yourself a favor and go through these next questions. So the question I'd like you to ask yourself now is this: if in 1 or 3 or 5 years' time you are still exactly where you are now, doing the same things day in and day out, how would that make you feel? Next, I'd like you to focus on what is actually painful about your comfort zone. Write down why it is boring and unfulfilling and mediocre and frustrating and depressing to stay where you are. And then focus on what it will actually give you. You know, what would be really pleasurable about fulfilling and stepping out into the big, crazy purpose dreams that God has placed on your heart. What will it feel like to live fulfilled, to live inspired, to live energized and enthused, and to live with your light shining bright? And then ask yourself this: is it an option to carry on playing it safe with your light on dim? And could it be that you do have what it takes to live out your big God dreams? I can tell you now that you do have what it takes, because if it's a God dream, He's woven that dream specifically for you. You have everything within you to live it out, even though it feels way bigger than you. So yes, when you live your life by design, what it means is you purposefully and intentionally live the life that you have been uniquely created to live. Thank you for walking through these first 4 awareness steps with me. And tomorrow, in the second part of the series, we'll take you through your next 4 steps. I look forward to seeing you in the next part 2. Cheers.